There's no way you'll be on the ballot.
Nothing's changed from the last time I've spoken to you about this. That's the decision I made about a year ago.
And then I'll be a private citizen in January.
Marco Rubio said he would retire from politics this year like 10,000 times.
No, I'm not running for re-election to the Senate.
But he changed his mind just before the deadline and is now running for re-election.
I know people in politics don't like to admit they've changed their mind, but I changed my mind.
We'll explain what drove his change of heart, and Marco Rubio will join us and explain where he stands with Trump at the top of the Republican ticket. We'll also look at Trump's slide in the polls and show what Trump plans to change. Our pollster, Matt Towery, will join us with predictions. We'll also sit down with U.S. Senate candidate and Polk County Congressman Alan Grayson. And Charley Belcher has returned from Scotland with perspective on the UK vote and how our race is playing out overseas. This is Money, Power, and Politics. Donald Trump is at a fork in the road, and he has to choose which path could lead him to Washington.
I'm really smart.
Well, a lot of smart people in politics fail in part because they get outspent.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
Well, he better rethink that if he hopes to win the White House, because according to the latest disclosures, his campaign is running on fumes. Ben Carson's campaign has more cash on hand than Trump's, and Carson dropped out 3 months ago.
A friend of mine comes up, he said, I want to give you, a rich guy, I want to give you a lot of money. I said, honestly, I don't need it.
Well, for Trump, you could say losing by around 6 points isn't bad when you haven't raised any money in a general election or run any ads, but he's heading into the conventions in a hole and at a big disadvantage. And this is the time in the campaign cycle when money moves the needle.
Above the fruited plain.
Remember how President Obama and the pro-Obama super PACs bombed Mitt Romney? They did it at the same point in the cycle, early summer, just before the conventions.
Mitt Romney made over $100 million by shutting down our plant and devastated our lives.
They defined and branded Romney as a vulture capitalist who feeds off of the misfortune of others.
When we built that stage, it was like building my own coffin.
Romney could never recover from that, and now Hillary Clinton and her allies are bombing Trump.
He is a con artist.
A phony.
Branding him as a hair-triggered charlatan who disrespects women, and he does not have the money to retaliate or respond with ads of his own.
Bimbo, dog, fat pig.
Trump has bragged that he doesn't need money for ads when the news media gives him so much attention, but now he's getting a lot of attention that he does not want.
We're building a wall. He's a Mexican. We're building a wall between here and Mexico.
Claiming a person can't do the job because of their race is sort of like the textbook definition of a racist comment.
So Trump now says he needs a different kind of campaign, like the kind that raises money and doesn't make Republican leaders cringe and doesn't say things that even his own supporters find racist. Trump is learning that he is not as invincible as he thought.
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
So at this fork in the road, Trump must tone down his rhetoric, but not so much that it makes people tune out.
This is boring. Boring. Tell some jokes.
And he has to either raise money or invest much more of his personal fortune into the race, or he may not win nearly as much as he promised, as only he could.
We're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to keep winning. We're going to win so much that you people are going to say, let's have a protest at the White House. We're winning too much. We can't stand it anymore because we're not used to winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, please, we don't want to win so much. And I'm going to say, I'm sorry. We're going to keep winning, winning, winning. And we are going to make America great again.
Okay, time for predictions. Donald Trump has already made some adjustments this week. He delivered a scripted and blistering attack on Hillary Clinton. And with that, he changed the narrative. And so we may see his poll numbers now nudge up a little. Meanwhile, the UK's decision to leave the European Union will spell volatile markets for a while. The price of real estate in Great Britain will go down. That could slow British investments in Florida real estate and make it cheaper for Americans to travel to the UK. And here at home, it could play into our presidential race as Trump and Clinton prepare for their conventions.
All right, let's bring in Fox 13 pollster Matt Towery. With the final primaries now passed, give us your predictions for how the Republican and Democratic conventions will play out.
The Republican convention is going to be more placid on the inside. There's going to be more unity than we expected. There may be a lot of things going off in the streets out there, riots or people upset or whatever, but we won't necessarily see it inside. The Democratic convention is going to be different. I don't think that you're going to see Bernie Sanders folks go down quietly, and they're going to start making an argument that Sanders did very well, and they want a place at the table.
A place at the table meaning possibly a spot on the ticket.
Yeah, you know, that's what I've really thought for the last month or so, is that really Hillary Clinton, if she wants to be president, should have Bernie Sanders as her vice president if he's willing to do that, and vice versa if somehow he were able to win the nomination. I don't think she would go for a vice presidential situation, but Sanders just might. And if he does, that would be bad news for Donald Trump.
And surely might, but would he not want that? After you pick up more than 10 million votes, would you not want just more than influence on the platform, but you would want place on that ticket?
I would think so, and I think you're going to start hearing that sort of mantra start to grow as we get closer to that convention.
Matt Towery, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up, Marco Rubio just shook up Florida's Senate race. What really made him change his mind and seek re-election? Rubio will join us and answer our questions. Marco Rubio said if he did not win the race to the White House, he would not run for re-election to the Senate.
And then I'll be a private citizen in January.
According to his own tweet, Rubio said that like 10,000 times.
No, I'm not running for re-election to the Senate.
Last month, we asked why he would not reconsider that, and he doubled down.
Why not reconsider running for re-election, given all the important work that you're doing right now on Zika and the other issues that you would surely leave as unfinished business?
At this point, I'm just going to stay. That's the decision I made about a year ago, and I don't think it'd be prudent at this point to change that.
But 2 days before the filing deadline, Rubio flip-flopped and announced he is running for re-election.
So I know people in politics don't like to admit they've changed their mind, but I changed my mind.
Rubio says he wants to push back on bad decisions from the next president, whether it's Clinton or Trump.
The Senate's role of being able to act as a check and balance on bad ideas from the president, I think, are going to matter more in 2017 than they perhaps ever have in our history.
If Rubio wins the nomination, he'll have Donald Trump, in all probability, at the top of the ticket, his former rival, who he called a con artist, who would do catastrophic harm to their party, or so he said. So Evan Axelbank sat down with Marco Rubio and asked him about his thoughts on Trump today.
After the week Donald Trump has had, do you think the Republican Party should still be confident in his ability to win the election in November?
Well, first of all, he's not running against Abraham Lincoln or Hillary Clinton's a badly damaged candidate. And so he'll have an opportunity. It'll be close. Florida is always going to be close. I mean, there's a large number of people that are locked in on both sides, and so you're always going to have a campaign on the what they call, obviously the swing voter. So it'll be a close election. There's no doubt it'll be a lot of hard work. That would have been true no matter who the nominee was, but so we'll see.
Have any cracks opened in your pledge to support the Republican nominee?
Well, look, just talking about this election, obviously I didn't want Donald Trump to be the nominee because I was running for president. I wanted to be the nominee, and I had reservations about him, strong reservations about him during the campaign, and I've still true, but elections are a choice, at least, and I respect someone who's made a different choice. I really do. I understand people that are saying they're not going to vote, they haven't decided yet. I made a pledge to support the nominee. I'm going to do that. You can do that and still have strong reservations about some of the things that are being said and done. But again, this election's a binary choice in my opinion. And Donald Trump's not running against one of the founding fathers of this country. He's running against Hillary Clinton, who's a badly, badly damaged candidate and someone who I think will be a terrible president.
Now, this is someone who's been criticized on multicultural issues, on racial issues. We heard what Paul Ryan said. Is race, are the comments that he made, are they not a priority for you? Is that what you're saying, that there are other things more important than what he's saying about that? They're not disqualifying is what you're saying.
They're a guy, I didn't want him to be the nominee. I wanted to be the nominee. He won. The voters chose him. And I think Hillary Clinton would be catastrophic for the country. And so I'm not going to support her, and I'm not going to abstain. That said, sure, I mean, like anybody else that's out there that holds the views I do, I don't like hearing these things. I hope he'll stop saying them. It sounds like he has, at least when it comes to Judge Curiel.
I'm glad he stopped 5 times today.
Well, that's a whole different issue. That's Elizabeth Warren, who's actively engaged in this debate back and forth, and so he's mocking her, and that's his style. That's totally different from going after the ethnic background of a judge in a federal case.
But what he said you don't believe is disqualifying to be president?
About the judge?
Sure.
I don't like that he said what he said, and I hope he'll stop. But ultimately, his opponent is Hillary Clinton, who lied to the families of Benghazi, who told people whose loved ones died in the service of our country that they died because of a video produced in California. I think that's disqualifying.
but what Trump said is not disqualifying.
I don't agree with what Donald Trump says. I condemned it. I hope he'll stop saying it. I'm glad that he has. I wish he never had said it, and I hope he'll never do anything like that again.
What do you hope to work on in the next 6-8 months? What do you see as an opportunity for something to get done? After, as you well know, getting things done in Washington doesn't seem to happen.
Right. So we're not going to balance the budget or pass tax reform in the next 4 weeks. I mean, obviously those are big undertakings, but I hope we can fully fund or largely fund our necessities when it comes to Zika, which threatens the state. I've worked a lot on the issue of obviously trying to ensure that we can move forward on some of the Everglades projects that will allow water to flow into the Everglades again, as opposed into the estuaries to the east and to the west. So we'll keep working on that. We have numerous military installations in Florida and affiliated operations that are always threatened by supposed or potential budget changes. So those are the issues we'll continue to work hard on.
Rubio is now running against fellow Republican Carlos Baruf, and you can watch our interviews with Baruf on our YouTube channel. Search for Craig Patrick's Money, Power, and Politics and click subscribe at the top of the page.
Coming up, Polk County Congressman Alan Grayson hopes to challenge Rubio in November. We'll put him to the test when we come back.
They sold us fire extinguishers that were empty.
Alan Grayson took off as a lawyer by suing war profiteers. The progressive Democrat rode the Obama wave into Congress in 2008.
To Americans.
He's known for grilling folks on Capitol Hill and for using sharp and colorful language.
What do you have a higher opinion of, Congress or dog poop?
Now Grayson is running for U.S. Senate. In the Democratic race, he's running against a former Republican, Congressman Patrick Murphy of South Florida. Grayson has faced allegations of mismanaging a family hedge fund and using his official office for campaign interviews. Grayson says he did nothing wrong. President Obama, Vice President Biden, and Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid are supporting Grayson's opponent, Patrick Murphy.
Congressman Grayson, thank you for joining us. I want to start with the hedge fund investigation, and I have two questions about this. First off, if there was something to this, why didn't the Ethics Committee form an investigative subcommittee? And then if there was nothing to it, why didn't they just clear you and conclude the investigation? It seems to be left in this kind of limbo, which is doing you no favors. What's going on here?
Well, what's going on is bureaucracy. It's that simple. As you point out, there was no investigative subcommittee formed by the Committee on Ethics. Every single time that they've actually punished a member of Congress officially for any kind of wrongdoing, of any kind, they've always formed an investigative subcommittee first. But it's also true that they often wait until after the election to dismiss these charges.
Why?
And well, bureaucracy. They just duck the question, and they find it's easier that way, that they can't be accused of favoritism one way or the other. But if you recall in the gubernatorial election last time, Charlie Crist had 9 ethics complaints filed against him. Governor Scott has 12 ethics complaints filed against him. Every single one was dismissed after the election. And that's what you'll be seeing here.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. If you had a do-over as it relates to anything with that family hedge fund, what would you have changed, if anything?
Nothing. I didn't do anything wrong.
Well,
I mean, it's that simple. I just didn't.
If you did nothing wrong,
right.
It still caused a great distraction. You're a wealthy man. You don't need the headaches and the distraction. You Google your name, that's going to pop up 20 times over. Why not just not have done it in the first place?
Because I invest with my children. You know who my partners are? Sky Grayson, Star Grayson, Sage Grayson, Storm Grayson, and Sohn Grayson. We invest together as a family. That's all we're talking about here. There's nothing wrong with that.
Now, to the claims that you used your official House resources to do some campaign-related interviews, I'm thinking of the Huffington Post Live, and then there was one other with a radio host thereafter. Was that a mistake?
No. No, I mean, again, you have to understand, I'm doing an interview, just like this interview here. Yes. We arranged the interview for unofficial business. We were talking about a particular issue. It happened to be an issue that was in the newspaper at the time. In the middle of the interview, they start asking me political questions.
That's true. That's true.
How could you ever shut down, and nobody shut down the interviews in the middle saying, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you about that. That's just not the way it works. They're holding me to a standard that nobody else is held to. In fact, they're not holding me to the standard because there's no investigative subcommittee.
Why do you think President Obama and Vice President Biden prefer a former Republican who supported Mitt Romney to you?
Because he is a callow tool. That's why. I've done wonderful things for my district and the people of Florida. I am, according to Slate magazine, the most effective member of Congress. I've passed 12 amendments on the floor of the House in the last 2 weeks. He's passed 7 in the past 3 years.
Wait, well,
I am the most effective member of Congress. I've passed 26 bills through the House, through the Senate, and signed into law by the President. And that's not what they want. They want somebody who will take orders. The power structure in Washington, D.C. wants somebody who's obedient. And I'm sorry, but I am not that person.
The president has also said we need to work our way back to civility, and you have said some things that are not civil on more than one occasion. Do you think that may be working against you in terms of the lack of support you're getting from Democratic leadership?
No, I don't think that has anything to do with it at all. You know, you can look around the country. The Democratic leadership put Donna Edwards, who would have been the second black woman ever to serve in the Senate, in the trash can because she's got a mind of her own. They took Joe Sestak, a 3-star admiral, the highest ranking Democrat, the highest ranking military official ever to serve in Congress, and they put him in the garbage can because he's not obedient either. They want people who will simply do what they're told and collect that cash from Wall Street and leave it at that. In my case, I'm different. I'm the only member of Congress, the only one who's raised most of his campaign funds from small donors. They fear that. They have a system where they go and they reach into the pockets of the billionaires and the multinational corporations and they pay for their campaigns that way. I have broken the mold. They don't want that.
Since polling has shown, though, that more Americans prefer civility to digging in and incivility in politics, is that something that gives you some pause and think maybe you need to be a bit more civil, tone it down?
Listen, I've passed 60 amendments in the floor of the House in the past 3 years alone. 60. Every single one of them required Republican votes. Every single one. You can go look on C-SPAN. You know, C-SPAN broadcasts the proceedings of the House. You'll find that I'm the only one who actually bothers to go to the other side, talk to them about my bills, and get their support. Go find me some other Democrat who does that. Isn't that what really matters if you're talking about bipartisanship, the ability to work together to get good things done? I passed a bill to extend a Florida tax break that's worth $1 billion. I had to work 11 months to get that done. Talk to Democrats, talk to Republicans, get that done. That's not a question of civility or incivility. That's a question of working hard, paying attention, and getting good things done for people. That's what people really want.
Do we need more compromise in Washington, or do we need more federal lawmakers who dig in and stick to their principles?
Oh, well, I mean, my principles are very important. I mean, I'm a champion for justice, equality, and peace. I want to see a higher minimum wage. I want to see seniors getting a raise. They were cheated out of a raise this year. Seniors deserve a raise. I want to see Medicare cover eyes, ears, and teeth. I want to see universal health care. I want to make sure that people know that they can go to college, public college, even if they can't afford to pay tuition. These are basic fundamental principles of being a progressive, being a liberal, if you will, okay? Those are my principles. That's what I fight for. The interesting thing about it is that I fight and I win. How much have you seen that in the last few years in Washington, D.C., where progressive can actually get good things done? I could give you countless examples. I mentioned over 60 amendments, every one of which I needed Republican votes to pass. 26 Grayson bills are now the law of the land. You know how many most people, members of Congress, have passed in the past 3 years? Any idea? What's the average?
What's the average? Tell me.
0.
Yeah.
It's 0. Most members of Congress have not passed a single bill. I've passed 26 of them. The gentleman who's running against me in the Democratic primary hasn't even gotten one of his bills out of the House, much less out of the House, through the Senate, and signed into law by the President of the United States. That's what people really want. They want someone who has action, who can deliver, and make their lives better.
We'll continue our conversation with Alan Grayson and other candidates in the weeks ahead. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for extended interviews. Search for Craig Patrick's Money, Power, and Politics and click subscribe at the top of the page. Coming up, Charlie's World goes around the world. Charley Belcher traveled to Europe and found out how our presidential race is playing out overseas.
Okay, here now with Charley Belcher, casual on a weekend. I probably should be as well. So you just came back from Scotland.
Yeah.
What did you find, and what's your reaction to the big vote in the UK?
Oh, the Britain breaking away, or United Kingdom breaking away from the European Union. I'm surprised because when we were over there, my wife and I visited Scotland and Ireland. And most of the talk I heard where I went was from people wanting to stay in the union.
And did they talk about American politics, Trump and Clinton?
You know, it's funny. Everywhere we went, in Scotland and Ireland, as soon as they found out we were American, and let's face it, it doesn't take long to figure out I'm an American when you look at me, the first thing out of the mouth was, "Oh, Trump. Trump. You voting for Trump, are you?" I mean, and Irish people are very inquisitive by nature anyway, or want to know everything that's going on. And are you voting for Trump, are you? And most people have a negative feelings about Trump. They were saying, "Oh, how can you vote for Trump? What are you doing? How can you do that?" But I did overhear one time having lunch. There was a table sitting behind us, and it was a group of Irish people. And I heard somebody say, "You know, the world needs another strong leader. So he'll be a strong leader, and I think the world needs that. I think it's a good thing." So I heard both, more negative Trump than positive Trump. But I was fascinated by the fact how much they're talking about American politics. Like even having lunch, this bunch of Irish people talking about our presidential election. That surprised me, because while we're talking about the EU this week, we don't normally sit around and talk about Irish or Scottish or English or any other country's elections that much, unless they're really big ramifications for the world.
And in this case, it's a sideshow and it has repercussions around the world.
And it certainly does, right. Shows you the importance of it and the American influence around the world.
Charlie, we've got a lot more ground to cover. We will in the coming weeks. Thank you again for joining us. You'll
Absolutely.
read my mail in an upcoming episode.
Yeah, I want to read some mail.
There we go. We will see you all next week. Take care.